Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to dive into a really fascinating paradox. This idea that the very things designed to keep us safe might actually be pushing us to take even bigger risks. And it all kicks off with one simple question.
On the surface, this seems like a total no-brainer. Of course they do. That's the whole point, right? But what if I told you the real story, the one that data tells, is a whole lot more complicated and honestly, way more interesting?
Okay, so let's jump right into the heart of this paradox with a classic example, cars. Back in the late 1960s, a bunch of new safety rules came into play, including the seatbelt, which we all take for granted now. The goal was pretty straightforward: save lives.
So you'd think the result would be obvious. Safer cars should mean fewer deaths on the road. Simple. Except that's not what happened. In 1975, an economist named Sam Peltzman looked at the data and found something totally baffling. While seatbelts were absolutely saving the lives of people inside the car during a crash, the total number of highway deaths hadn't really changed. So what on earth was going on?
Well, here's the wild twist. The problem wasn't the technology, it was us. It was human psychology. Peltzman figured out that drivers, because they felt so much safer and more protected, subconsciously started driving faster, taking more chances. So the safety benefit for the driver was basically canceled out by more accidents happening in the first place, which tragically meant more danger for pedestrians and people in other cars.
And this really surprising finding gave its name to a powerful psychological principle, one that perfectly explains how our own sense of security can lead us down a dangerous path.
And here's the key takeaway. It's not the actual level of risk that shapes our behavior, but how risky we feel it is. The moment we feel like we've got a safety net, our internal riskometer just dials down, and we naturally start to push the limits a little bit more. This is also called risk compensation, and trust me, you start seeing it everywhere once you know what to look for.
The skydiving pioneer Bill Booth said it perfectly. He noticed that as the equipment got safer and safer, skydivers just started doing crazier and crazier things. This proves it's not just about driving, It's a fundamental part of who we are. Whether you're jumping out of a plane or just deciding whether to jaywalk, that feeling of security is always in the back of your mind.
So you can really break it down into 3 simple steps. First, some new safety measure gets introduced. You can think of it as a brand new safety net. Then, because of that net, our perception of the risk just plummets. We feel safe. And third, because we feel so safe, we start doing riskier things, basically using up that safety margin that was just created.
Okay, now let's bring this home, because this is where it gets really important for so many of us. How does this weird psychological quirk show up in the world of finance, where the stakes can be massive? Let's walk through a few of these safety traps.
All right, first up, a strategy that got really popular right before the massive 1987 stock market crash. It was called portfolio insurance. The name alone just sounds so safe and reassuring, doesn't it? It was supposed to be a totally automatic safety net for anyone investing their money.
So here was the big idea. Computer models would automatically sell your assets the second the market started to drop, all to protect you from taking a big hit. It's kind of like a modern-day stop-loss order, right? A logical safety measure. But on Black Monday in 1987, this safety net backfired in the most spectacular way. When the market started to wobble, all these automated programs kicked in at the exact same time, creating this absolute tsunami of selling that just overwhelmed the entire market. The thing designed to stop a disaster actually helped create it.
Now let's zoom out from our own strategies to the big institutions. You've all heard the phrase too big to fail. It basically implies there's a safety net provided by the government. If the biggest banks get into deep trouble, don't worry, the government will come in and save the day.
Well, this creates a textbook economic problem we call moral hazard. It's really just the Peltzman effect on a gigantic institutional scale. Think about it. If a bank thinks it's going to get bailed out no matter what it does, it has a massive incentive to take on way more risk. If the bets pay off, great, the bank keeps all the profit. If they blow up, well, the government, and that means us, the taxpayers, get stuck with the bill. The safety net itself encourages the very risky behavior it's supposed to protect us all from.
And now let's bring this all the way down to the individual level. I'm talking about the phone that's probably in your pocket right now. Modern trading apps have made it so incredibly easy to invest. It feels smooth, it feels safe, and it feels like you're completely in control.
But here's the trap. All that ease of use can create what's known as an illusion of control. The slick interface, the one-tap trading, it makes us feel safer and more in command than we really are. And that feeling of safety can lead us to take bigger positions, trade more often, and often with pretty painful results. I mean, get this. One analysis found that a staggering 70% of individual day traders lost money in a single fiscal year. Ouch!
So we've looked at everything from cars to market crashes to trading apps. What's the big idea here? What's the one hidden risk that ties all of these safety traps together?
The most important thing to remember is this. The greatest danger isn't always the external threat, the car crash or the market downturn. The real risk is inside us. It's our own psychology. It's our natural tendency to let that warm, fuzzy feeling of security blind us to the new dangers we're creating for ourselves.
And that brings me to a final question for you to think about. Whether we're talking about your money, your job, or even your health, just take a second to consider, what's the safety net you rely on? And could that very thing that makes you feel so secure be subtly pushing you to creep just a little bit closer to the edge?